Hello, this is the Ancestors Advocate, and this is the Ancestor Veneration video course, and this is video number 9. And the topic for this one is, it's going to be a short one, but Ancestor Veneration is not a trend. That's what I wanted to touch on today. And I'm saying this because I want people to avoid the herd mentality kind of thinking that comes with, getting to some spiritual practices. Sometimes even when we see other people do it online on social media, talk about it or do it, um, it has to be a certain level of personal integrity and involvement and experience needs to be part of this. And it's part of the reason why I'm making this whole video series so people can have a much deeper understanding of everything that we're talking about. A lot of people are. Here's what I wanted to say actually. Most people, most black people, coming into African spirituality or in Ancestor Veneration, which is also part of African, spiritual traditions, they came out of the church. And the church is a very social environment. It's also part of why some people just stay there because of the social bonds. You know, it's hard to let go of. But once they are able to break away at least from that and try to seek truth on their own, they come across these things. And on one level, I wouldn't want people to attach the same religious or Christian mentality to how they approach these spiritual traditions. That has to be avoided, or at least understood. Uh, I think I may have touched on a little bit, for example, how people approached uh, God in a somewhat fearful way, with the intimidation of eternal damnation. Even though some will not admit to it, there is a deep psychological effect that goes on when, as a child, you're introduced to your concepts of divinity and spirit, and you're told that if you're not a good boy or a good girl, you're gonna burn in hell for the rest of your life. And that's mentally abusive, psychologically abusive to children and adults, to anyone actually. But also to children because they're very sensitive and their imaginations are wild. So that's not very good to tell someone with a very wild imagination either. Sorry for that. What and that was an example to explain just there's a certain level of cleansing, some kind of psychological cleansing that has to come, or energetic cleansing because of what the psyche has gone through when it was in religious system, as it transitions into finding its own truth, finding the truth. As it transitions into diving into African traditions, you really need to study these things and give your attention to them to really understand them and ask smart questions as well, not just take on something with out of sheer or mere belief, which is how we were trained to do when we were in religion, to just believe things, which is not a good thing to do. I'm also saying that it's not a trend because people, when they are looking for something, especially when you're in the state of limbo, when you're out of religion and you need to and you have nothing to hold on to, there is a longing, a deep psychological longing to, I need to latch onto some kind of truth, because it's like the ground beneath your feet has disappeared and it's like you're falling. And you might, I know this is a case for me. I felt like my reality is very unstable because religion had been um, was part of what structured how I understood the world, moved about in the world. Now with that gone, it was like a huge part of my psyche had fallen away, and I had a difficult time knowing how to orient myself in the world, and I had to come to terms with the fact that I just don't know shit, that I've been lied to for all of my life until that point when it came to spiritual matters, and I had to accept that I deeply did not know. and I did not know also what was wrong or what was right, and if I was going to be punished if I, you know, was doing the wrong thing but didn't know, because I still had that Christian mindset, you know, nudging me like, what if this is wrong? What if I got to go back to the church? You know, what if God is watching me, testing me, judging me, all that kind of stuff? You know, there's all this, there's a heap of weights, a heap of psycho spiritual weight based off of the indoctrination and the lies we were given. And once you leave the church, once you leave religion, and you're out on your own, and you've had this moment of limbo where you don't know nothing, it can last for days, weeks, even months, you will feel the weight. You will feel the destructive poison of religion. You know, once you're on your own, you got nothing else, and all you have is the residual negative effects of that religion. You will feel what it's done to you psychologically, and it's very unfair. You will feel, especially as you work your way through these things, how abusive it was to your mind, how abusive it actually is to your spirit. This is like a period of detoxing, okay? So don't rush this detoxification period. You know, don't simply run to truth because you need something to stand on, just because you need something, just because you need to like know what's wrong or what's right. So you know you're like, okay, I'm in the clear. I'm not gonna get struck by lightning. You know, that's extremely terrible. You know, you've lost your innocence there. You really lost your innocence. Religion really takes away your innocence, and that's a terrible thing. You know, when you really understand it, what's going on, it's a terrible thing. And it pretends to, you know, bring people closer to God, closer to truth, but when you leave them alone without that drug, it's crazy. Because what they suffer from is their psychology, their own psychology. If they were just simply left alone, um, and you will, and if you relate to this, then you know when you're simply left alone, even if you don't know what's right or wrong or don't know what to believe in anymore, all you have is the life that you are and the present moment and reality and existence and nature around you, and you kind of sink into that more, and it's almost like you're forced to be kind with yourself, to be easy with yourself, to let yourself off the hook, to be more simple, you know, to say, hey, I don't know what this is about. And it feels unfair to be judged if you don't know better, if you're not sure, you know, or if you still need time to figure things out. It's very, very unfair. So you really start to understand that, hey, I need to let myself out the hook. I need to show myself more kindness, more sweetness of emotion. And you realize when you were in religion, there was no true sweetness of emotion. It was only very conditional. If you accept the Lord JC as your Lord and Savior, you know, and the one true begotten Son of the Almighty God, then you would have that sweetness of emotion. But if you were simply to be as you are, as yourself, knowing or not knowing, right, simple or complex, doesn't matter. Relaxed or traumatized, doesn't matter. You would, if you were just to be by yourself, right, you would have that sweetness of emotion, that um, sense of, let me just be kind and understanding who I am. Let me just give myself some time. That would just come naturally. But you feel the tension after coming out of religion, of knowing that you should be that way, but feeling the fear, the residual fear of, well, what if the Bible is true? And what if JC gonna come in the clouds one day and he gonna rain hail on all his enemies, and I'm his enemy now because I was not, you know, I left the church and stuff like that. So sometimes when people are in this state, right, it can be quite challenging, and they want to latch on to something to believe in, just to give them some sense of psychological, emotional comfort, you know, and when they discover, you know, these African religious and African, you know, spiritual beliefs, or I mean, spiritual traditions and understandings and stuff like that. I was trying to tie this to a really good point. There can be a quickness to grab hold, you know, of something new, to get yourself more grounded, right? And that's almost like there's an underlying fear-based response. There's an underlying fight or flight type of motivation to that activity. Okay, and sometimes once the person gets comfortable, they don't take their practice seriously enough because all they really subconsciously needed to do was to ease their mind of their worry and the fears, ease their minds of that judgment. So they jump into African traditions, they jump into African spirituality, ancestor veneration, they jump into something, anything to anchor themselves. And once they're anchored, once they have that sense of calm, it's like they a little lazy with the practices, because it's coming from a place of they needed something for themselves first before they could apply any devotion to uh, the spirits that they're dealing with, whether it's ancestral or the spirits within this tradition the African spiritual tradition that they're working with, or any other indigenous spiritual tradition that they're working with. They needed something for themselves. So it's important to have a keen enough self-awareness to be aware of that, be aware of what you're really looking for, what you really want. And that's not a bad thing. It's an okay thing. You gotta you gotta locate yourself somewhere. You gotta establish stable ground before you start building any house. So understand what you're doing, okay? And there's also the social thing, or it can be socially comforting to find, oh, a group of other people doing it. Maybe they're on YouTube, maybe they're on social media talking about it, doing it, doing this ancestor veneration kind of stuff, and you jump on. Maybe you share a couple of clips or videos of you burning stage or whatever. I don't know what it is, but anything that visually looks like you're playing the part, and uh, also, what was the other thing I wanted to say? Visually looks like you're playing a part, and gives you also some kind of sense of uh, social significance or social value. Because one thing when happens when you go on a spiritual journey like this is you tend to stand. You notice that you're very different from most people. Most people do not have this level of spiritual depths or l- vision or perception within them, and you will be very much alone. Right, you will have a hard time knowing who to connect with for a while because you got to work on yourself. There's so much that goes on with this. So there's periods of loneliness that can go on. So there's sometimes this urge. Well, there's oftentimes this urge or this longing for again to reestablish some kind of social um, atmosphere around you. Like you once had when you were at church or going to the mosque every day. You went with your whole family. You went with your all your friends. You felt rooted within the community or the tribe. It was very, supporting. But now you're out here all on your own. All on your own. So the social hunger that comes with that. It's crazy. And sometimes, like I said in the video about the code of ethics and conduct when it comes to ancestor veneration, how people could sometimes weaponize their ancestors like an AK-47 and say stuff like, if you're on my bad side, my ancestors are going to come get you. Some of that is also part of a consequence of loneliness and the difficulties of dealing with that. You know, there's a whole lot that can happen here. But again, because of and think about all these serious issues that I'm just laying out here for you. It's not a trend. Part of why something can feel like a trend or lean towards being a trend is, again, the social aspect, the loneliness aspect, the when you caught onto something because you needed to have a ground beneath your feet to stand on, to feel grounded, to feel safe. There's, not to be rude, but there's also a lack of integrity there. Why? Because it was for not, I don't want to say very selfish motivations, but very um it's like some kind of root chakra necessities. It's kind of like a child. A child needs things for them, and the mother and the father are there to support the child, give them nurturance, um, food, shelter, all that stuff. So it's like you're in kind of like in that state, and you have to grow in order to be able to come to a point where okay, now you can also do your part. I don't even know if I explained my point correctly with that metaphor. But what I'm trying to say is because of you needed so much more, right? And maybe you were not aware of just how much you need for yourself. You, it's hard to give, it's hard to give from a place of um, need when you are the one that's in need, right? So, and you can latch on to ancestor veneration because it sounds like the thing to do. It sounds like the good thing to do, right? It sounds like, oh, this is correct. But you also have to evaluate how you are in this space and time, what your honest needs are. If it's like you need more of a grounding or a footing, then not to say that you should not venerate ancestors, but pay mind to that because it's just better off. You're much better off being aware and being attentive of these things and gives you a certain level of control and awareness, and you learn how to move, right? And it lets you avoid going. I'm gonna tie this back to my point. It lets you avoid seeing this thing as a trend, seeing this thing as oh, this is where I simply have located myself. No, this is a part of life. And when I say simply where I've located myself, it's like, again, satisfying your needs for safety, security, groundedness. You know, you kind of, when you go into ancestor veneration, it's beyond that. And the trend culture is usually about that, a sense of belonging, a sense of psychological security, or okay, I'm doing the right thing. Just cultivating a certain level of confidence or being sure of yourself without, maybe you have not built enough, or you don't have enough intuition to let you know that this is a good thing. When things are done out of integrity, you don't really care about how other people are doing it. You just know how you are and how you do it, and your consistency and integrity with the practice. Integrity is not about, oh, people talk about crystals online a lot, so maybe I need to get myself some new crystals. Now, that's not, again, that's trendy and it could work, it could be great, but when you're dealing with integrity and the energy of integrity, it's a lot more pure and true to the heart. It's beyond there's sort of what it's beyond the need to feel safe. It's beyond the survival instinct, right? It is simply, this is the thing to do. This feels, and I understand it also as being correct and good, so I'm going to go ahead and do it in the best way that I can do it. That's more like integrity, regardless of who's watching and who's not watching. And regardless also of my own personal level of mastery about it, I just know that, hey, this is the thing. I'm gonna do it, right? And you don't need to see other people doing it. You know what I'm saying? There is no fear. Does not take you away from it either. It's just like, this is it, okay? So I just wanted people to be self-aware when it came to this kind of stuff and to pay attention to their own spiritual journeys and the energy that they carry around the matter of ancestor veneration. It's not a trend. It's a sacred practice. Uh, and I made this video just so people can pay attention to who they are and what their needs are. And once you deal well with this, it's even easier to deal well with those that you are trying to assist as well in the ancestral realms or communicate with in the ancestral realms. Uh, ancestor veneration does not omit one of the responsibility to know themselves and have some level of introspection and yeah, your own individual spiritual journey and growth and exploration. It can assist with that, but it's not going to replace you. It's not going to replace that. And yeah, ancestors can also help you. They can give you a push. They can tell you things that you didn't know you needed that you actually do need, and they can help with that. But there's a certain level of sovereignty. I'm not saying that there's a certain level. There is sovereignty. Everyone has sovereignty over themselves. Okay, so always remember that. Always regard that. Thank you for watching this video. Let's hit all that I needed to say. I thought this would be a short video, but I'm going down to 19 minutes. So, but it's all needed to be said. Again, thanks for watching, and see you on video number 10.